news that I can't wait to tell you. And I'm sad that I told you already, and now I'm going to tell you again. All right, so let's do the easy things. I already checked my sugars. I'll show you the memory so I don't have to poke myself again. That my ketones were 0.8 and my glucose was 82. And I also said that my last week had a really cool moment that I wanted to tell you about. And that is I got to do a workshop with real live human beings in it. I went to Camp Rapid, which is in Rapid City, South Dakota. I took my 15-year-old son and I took my niece, who got to see what a wonderful, just incredible questions, several from the military, several therapists that were there to learn how can we improve their brains. And I just want to say to those watching, thank you, thank you, thank you, because my son, who, I don't know, do you remember being 15? Your mom doesn't know anything, and your mom is, especially if I make him do keto, he is definitely, he's definitely got a mind of his own. But when he was at that workshop, he was able to see me as a different human being because of the questions, because of the curiosity. And as I look through the names of the folks that are chatting today, I have memorized the first like 36 people who took the first online course for the brains course. And I am just thankful for the people who watched me who joined that course live, and the ones who came last week to the live workshop. This isn't my workshop to invite you to, so I didn't talk about it ahead of time. But as I gave that live workshop, it's the first one I've done live in over a year because of COVID. So I'm definitely feeling a lot better. Okay, so then I had this really cool thing that I just told you all, but apparently you couldn't see me. And I am going to try and do this again because I made a mistake. So it's a good thing that that I waited. So let's try this again. Keep chatting. If something goes wrong, put it in the chat because I'm watching that. All right. I want on Safari and take out. Okay, so I want you to see that up in Amazon, I typed in this word, KetoCONTINUUM. So the KetoCONTINUUM is the word I typed in. Initially, I had it to say audiobooks and it didn't work, but it says books right next to it. And I was looking that we have over 450 reviews for the book. That is such a big moment. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I don't know what it says about my personality that I definitely looked at the negative reviews, like what was disappointing to people. And over and over and over in the negative reviews, it was that they wanted, the workbook. I think I mentioned the workbook like 20 some times. And again, the difference between the first book I wrote, Any Way You Can, and KetoCONTINUUM is Any Way You Can was the quick lessons. If you've never heard of keto, it's a great story. It's the lessons I taught my mom. But I left a lot to be desired for what it took to really walk somebody through a keto journey. And especially as a clinic, other providers, other keto coaches, the places I have practiced sharing what it is I do in my clinic was the online course. And then, of course, the book KetoCONTINUUM. And I put in there, what is it that I have my patients do? So I'm super excited to scroll down and show you, look what is live as of right now is the workbook. And I'm rather embarrassed to say that I didn't know that the Library of Congress didn't give you numbers for a Library of Congress number if it's a workbook. I waited for a week for that. I could have had this out last week. And I am super thankful that when I walk somebody through the keto journey, I would use these handouts is what I was using. And these handouts have gone through a few revisions. I know that I could have pushed print on a really suboptimal workbook in January when the regular textbook came out, or the regular book came out, but it would not have been as good as this is. So as much as I don't like disappointing those that have been waiting for this workbook, I'm very thankful that it's done. I don't ever want to write a book again right now. But my illustration is out of focus. Yeah, I wonder how to get that better. So can I just blow it up? Maybe. Let's see. It looks good in print form. I don't know how it looks on the. But the little pencil is the one that's the workbook. Those are ketone buddies. So if you've been watching the channel, that's what they are. And I am super excited to share this with you. If you, in fact, I make a promise in there that if you get through this workbook, you will have put your health on a better trajectory. What the workbook does is stops the patients, shows them exactly what's going wrong if they've plateaued, exactly what happens when people write in and say, "Hey, doc, I've been doing keto for a year and I haven't lost any weight." And I don't let patients be stagnant like that. And this workbook walks them through much easier. You do not need a doctor to do this, but I think to see the steps written out and really just reflect on how it is that you change the way your perspective is, and you will change how you analyze yourself by just following through this workbook. If you want to go to a bookstore to buy it, you got to wait till June 1st, which is in 2 days. So it'll be available just in a couple days in bookstores, but Amazon approved it over the weekend, and I couldn't be more delighted to be done with this project, or at least this step of it. Really, the feedback for what patients use I want to take this off actually. The feedback for what patients use on a day-to-day basis. That's how I like to say I did a pretty good job of cutting out the waste for the project and really finding the charts that mattered, the steps that mattered, and trying to get them to focus. I'm going to try to use patient stories over the next probably 2 or 3 months, connecting to different steps that the workbook would have helped them through. So that brings me to tonight, which I was about to start this when, so if somebody just said, I can't find it on Amazon, you have to type in KetoCONTINUUM, and you got to make sure that little drop-down arrow said books. And if it's the second one, it's the one with the little ketone buddies holding a pencil in their hand. So I hope you can find it, Pamela. I'll watch for that as we go on. All right. Let me tell you about what we're going to do tonight. I have the story, which is where the title, I'll have a better thumbnail up in a bit. So if you're watching this on replay, I will show you a bit of what Steve looks like and his story, and his fibroblasts are why I'm focusing on him tonight. And I am going to start by saying the folks who are following me on Instagram will see that last week when I attempted to fast, I don't even think I posted the 24-hour fast, because I was traveling with 2 teenagers and I was doing a workshop. And although fasting would have been a good idea, it went out the window. Didn't get it done. Totally didn't even try. And I will, this week, you'll see in Instagram, not only are you going to see some moving and packing pictures, but you are also going to see that I will fast this week, and I'll give you some numbers. The other major thing that happens this week is it is Michelle's last fast before our 6-month update, which is next Sunday, right here, 6 o'clock. We are going to show you where she's been, what her numbers are. The labs are back. We're going to talk about them. And boy, I think it's worth the time, because she is, if you want a little closer relationship with Michelle, follow her on Instagram. This is her Mogo's Keto. And she is up to about 700 followers on her Instagram. And really the encouragement that her story has given in our playlist called American Tradiction, meaning addiction and tradition blended together, are where we see a lot of people struggle with a ketogenic diet. Michelle said yes when it was a brave moment for her to say yes, and I'm super thankful. As we walk through the last week of her, I don't think she'll stop fasting. I think she'll continue, but you can watch her story on Instagram as well, and I try to boost it anytime I see her on Instagram as well. All right. So again, on Sunday nights, especially on a weekend where the first 10 minutes were a little bit of haywire, I am going to give away some free books. There'll be 4 audiobooks given away. One will be for the global market for Any Way You Can, one for the US market for Any Way You Can. The most important part right now is for you to write down those URLs, because at the end, you'll want to be ready to type in the free coupon codes that get you either a free audiobook for Any Way You Can or KetoCONTINUUM. I would love to share that with you. I am watching the chat saying, yes, those of you that are in the Tampa area, that is my new home. And I hope that I find people like Steve. So on the Sunday Night Lives, I'm just going to pop over to this live chat for a second. On the Sunday Night Lives, I am trying to transition to something where I think the seasoned Dr. Boz watcher will appreciate that the content for a lot of my slide decks. I love doing it. I love teaching it, but I'm going to try to do that in a way that's a lot shorter and a lot more scripted, meaning you can't have the issue that I just had 10 minutes ago happen during a slide deck. So I want to remind you that as a physician, as somebody who's been in healthcare, I know that in the year of COVID, the healthcare teams have been the heroes, and they really have been. But on this channel, the heroes, and we have a reel of heroes, the heroes are the ordinary people who are taking the keto journey and really taking it to the next level, finding a way to push through in a difficult time. I'm just your guide. I'm just the one who can hopefully answer some of the questions, connect the dots about why did that happen, and is it possible to recreate that. I really appreciate the privilege of people asking and trusting the teachings that I give on this channel. But the hero isn't me. The hero is the people that write into the channel, that tell me about their successes. And I am going to show off that heroism tonight by a man who wrote in probably 3 months ago. I've saved this story because I really love how much he did on his own. I've never met him, but I just want to praise him and give him some support of here's some answers that you asked. And there are so many people that ask about joint pain and some connective tissue, and the connective tissue inside your knees, inside your spine, inside your skin, inside tendons and ligaments. And I think you're going to be pretty impressed when you see Steve's story. So let's get to it. And we're going to start. Steve wrote in, and let's see here. I was like, please work. Okay. So Steve tells us, I have been keto for approximately 8 months. After being diagnosed with severe coronary artery disease and having advanced calcification, I was advised to lose weight and to lower my visceral body fat. Again, visceral body fat specifically is talking about the fat that's winding around organs. If we got to look at that fat under even just at surgery or autopsy, that fat would be white, not brown. Brown fat has a much different level of energy and is something we'll be talking about in some of the lectures coming up over the next few months. So he said he was trying to find a way to lose weight. Someone had mentioned that the keto diet was the only way they'd ever lost weight in their life. He started looking on YouTube, found this channel and a few others, but he kept hearing me say, if you really want to know how to do this, read the book. The secret is in the book. Read the book. And so he writes in there a little bit more that I didn't put all of it in, but she's like, she kept harping to buy this book. And finally I bought the book. He resisted it for several weeks, thinking he could just learn it all on YouTube, which maybe you could, but it's a lot of time I think it takes to find the right fit. All right. So when he did get the book, and the book he bought was Any Way You Can. This was again a couple of years ago. Probably about the fall of 2020 is when he bought it. Maybe I don't know if it says in here. He said the book upped my game. He cleaned out his cupboards And he said that I had to write down a why. And he said, well, I wanted to look better, not just with the clothes that I wear, but I wanted to look better like naked. But little did he know there was so much more about to happen to Steve. All right. So as you look at Steve's improvement, he said, when I read Any Way You Can, he was on a statin, blood pressure meds, a vasodilator, and he had been taking testosterone and injecting HCG. So again, pretty heavy load for medication. He also had an MRI that had shown a torn meniscus in his right knee. And as he was driving, sounds like he drives a pretty big truck. As he was driving, his knee had hurt for probably 3 years every day. When it would ache and throb, the longer he would sit and the longer he would try to use that right leg, the leg with the knee, the bad knee. As Steve continued to look at some of the obstacles, this is how he read Any Way You Can in the fall of 2019. He also knew that his insurance was going to run out January 1st of 2020. So in the last month of 2019, this is a very common story. He said, I needed to go into the hospital and get that, meniscus tear. Again, the meniscus, if you can think of eating a chicken leg, that really strong tendon-like material is found between the bones, and it is very dense when it comes to it's not bone, it's not calcified, but it's a really strong density of connective tissue. Where does it come from? It comes from your fibroblasts. Fibroblasts make the connective tissue and can be stimulated in bodies, especially when they have healthy mitochondria and they're under stress. So the day he goes in for surgery, or the day before, he had spiked a temperature up to 102. When he went into the hospital, they said, nope, not having surgery, can't do that. Your risk for infection is too high. And of course, with the limited number of days in that, limited number of days in that year, he was going to tap out. He wasn't going to get the surgery to happen because there was no insurance after the first of the year. And indeed, that is what happened. So he progresses through the next several months. And he said, I soon realized that it was kind of pouty after he realized he wasn't going to get the surgery. But it wasn't long before he realized, I can't believe that the aches and pains that I had attributed to, the chronic aging, that joint that's not going to work right, they had dissipated and actually had healed, something that he was told couldn't be done. And he goes, for years, my workout had suffered from that joint pain. I had done everything the doctor had asked. I had tried to work that out, strengthen the muscles around the knee. But every time I went to use and stress that knee, it would make it hurt. He says he remembers the day when he stepped out of bed. And if you've ever had plantar fasciitis, it's that first step in the morning that gets everybody's attention to say, oh, ouch, that hurts so badly. And we talk about all the different ways to slowly stretch out those tendons at the bottom of the foot because there's nothing like the chronic inflammation of plantar fascia to either keep you in bed or at least make you very aware of the first step. But he stepped out of bed and realized, I haven't had that pain in several weeks. So his plantar fasciitis was better. His knee pain was improved. And Steve went on to say, I started after I realized I was doing so much better. By this time, he's lost some weight, but not quite all the weight he's going to lose. He loses 30 pounds before he's all done. So I started feeling lightheaded at the gym. He went to see his doctor, and his doctor measured his blood pressure as 100 over, he couldn't remember the lower number, but the top number was 100. The systolic number was 100. She cut my meds in half, and 2 weeks later, I was still feeling lightheaded, so he stopped all of his blood pressure medicines together. In the workbook, we talk about how important that is, that he could have predicted this had that workbook been available for him. He goes, after watching Dr. Boz's video, he started to think, maybe I don't need testosterone. And if you've ever heard me talk about testosterone, it is a great time to live in the opportunity for healthcare, that if you're missing hormones like testosterone, yes, we can give them to you. But if you think that we, the medical team, does a better job than your body, I will warn you, you are going to be sorely disappointed. We can never match the nuances that happen in testosterone and the response that the human body does from the changes in the endocrine system. So by this time, Steve has down 30 pounds. And I have said the words before I started really, in fact, I've probably said them as recently as 3 years ago that, once those patients start testosterone, I never get them off of it. And he stopped his testosterone. So Steve was able to stop his testosterone, and he decided he was going to stop injecting the HCH as well. So how did that turn out? The next time he did his lab tests, his testosterone had jumped 245 points. He said the inflammation in his joints and muscles had dissipated completely. He also said, I could not believe how much his energy was boosted. The boosted energy didn't kind of gently take over his life. It really enhanced his ability to focus during the day, for him to perform better at the gym. And although his original idea of his why was he keto, had much to do with his, the way his body looked, he found that there were other things that were so much more valuable than a nice looking body. This one, I get lots of folks writing in. Have you ever heard of this, Dr. Boz? Does this ever happen? I think Steve tells the story very well. So he had gone to the doctor, the eye doctor, because his glasses just didn't seem to be working right. He said, my vision had improved. The ophthalmology team was looking at his score. And again, he had he had worn glasses for over 10 years. And at the last visit to the eye doctor, she said, hey, this is so much better. I wonder, can you read the bottom line, the 20/20 vision at the, I just hope that's not my car out there honking. Can you read the 20/20 vision at the bottom of the chart? And he said, I absolutely could. It was incredible. So I've had folks say, I wonder why my floaters and the other things. I just had to truly introduce you to Steve. This is Steve at the gym. And one of the places, I didn't put all of his letter in there. But he said, I can't believe how much better definition my skin has. And even just to look at the veins in my arm, if you look at that, a lot of things get stored in just under the skin as a great deposit we don't have the energy to take care of that. We really can't undo it. And in the meantime, we're going to have a little bit of kind of delay in how well people respond to the ketogenic diet. But Steve's improvement, not only in the way he looks in the gym, but also just looking at the definition of what his fibroblasts did inside his knee, inside his eyes. And you can't look at that skin to say, oh, it looks like the skin of a 30-year-old, not the skin of a 60-year-old. So the final statement from Steve was, well, part of his motivation was to look better. It had evolved to so much more. Oh, let's go back to that. Let's go back to that. No. Hold on. No, stop. Let me go in here. See if I can get that to go back to the final slide. Well, I'll wait. Let's see. I wonder how I do that. This would be one of those moments where I would ask Jack, what button do I push for that? I think inspector maybe is what I have to do. Nope, that's not going to let me do it. So how do I stop the play? Well, I guess I could. Oh, here we go. Perfect. That's what I want. I can turn it back on. Okay. There we go. Okay. Pardon me. Let's try that again. So, while part of his motivation was still to look better, it had evolved to so much more. And he wanted to reach for autophagy. I showed that vein picture before I started to talk about autophagy and wrap up those images of what does a fibroblast do? Why does that excess skin go away? Why does that knee pain improve? And is it possible for things that I've said, and I know many other physicians have said, that when you look at the repair of the human body, maybe we just don't give it enough credit. If you look at Steve's journey, he isn't the first one to write in. I chose his story because it connected a lot of things. We've had a number of people write in about eye issues. We've had a number of people write in saying, I think these floaters in my eyes are less. Have you ever heard of that? And then if you do watch the hero reel, this past week we shared a story of a man whose both hips were replaced. And again, he had the privilege of really good insurance that replaced the hips. But after being keto, he said, I wonder, did I need that? Did I really need to have the did I really need to have the improvement in did I really need to have the surgery to improve that pain, or could I have improved the pain with a ketogenic approach? When Steve's story has the threads of not only showing you that it wasn't a little bit of a medical problem, he had severe coronary artery disease. It isn't an accident that I chose somebody who was also injecting testosterone and using some hormones that, despite using the advanced layers if you read about what happens with testosterone and HCG, we know we can make the body leaner. We know we can ask the body to produce a higher amount of stress on the body. And what I'd like to believe is that at some level we were helping them with autophagy. But I didn't show the before pictures of Steve, but you could see that after months in the gym, off of testosterone, off of the HCG, you don't have to be a doctor to know that that guy's healthy. That his testosterone was higher than we could ever get it with the injections that we were giving him. We also know that as he is trying to repair his body, that visceral fat came with the loss of his visceral fat came with the losses, came at the same time his joint pain improved, his cognition improved, and his eyesight improved. Now, you cannot predict that. You cannot say, oh, for sure this is going to happen. What I can say is Steve's ability to reach the highest level of repair within his body wasn't because he casually did a little bit of keto. He measured his ketones. He followed that process of saying, once you hit a plateau in how your body's doing, stress your system, push it to the next level. And finally, as you look at the improvement that I like patients to find is his why started out kind of selfish, like we all do. Like, what's in it for me? How can I look better? How can I feel better? But what really is endearing about Steve's story is he goes, yeah, I just didn't have a clue that I could feel this much better. And now my why is, how can I show other people how this ketogenic journey isn't just about the weight loss. And although it does top the charts in a great way to lose weight, because most people are insulin resistant, what you really get the benefit of when you've done this to the level that Steve has is he's reversing his age. He is adding stamina and quality of life to his life, and he's spreading it to other people. Oh, that was incredibly loud. Sorry. All right. So I do want to show you one other thing before I give away those books that I was just showing you. And that is, let's see if I can go over here. So in in the, um, let's try again. I got to share this first. So at bozmd.com, I wanted to show Steve and a few other people that is something I enjoy doing is supporting people who do a ketogenic diet, especially those who are sharing it with others. So you'll see that in the story of David in KetoCONTINUUM, and I contend that one of the reasons Grandma Rose's story turned out to have such a positive health improvement, it began with a support group. So as I go to bozmd.com and you click on store, what I want Steve to do, as well as anybody who has been looking at the ketogenic diet and saying, how can I help other people? They're likely not going to read a book. They're not going to spend 15 hours on YouTube looking at videos. They are hardly going to listen to an audiobook, even if it has a good story. It is this product that I say is minimum viable product. And if you buy 6 or more, I'll pay for half of them. Looking at this isn't something where when you say quantity 6, add to the cart, you're going to see that there is a 50% reduction for that. And what I'm not going to do a checkout right now, but that's because I really do know that if I had to look at the importance of a support group, it is what kept my mother going. It's also what, when I look at patients who struggle the most, it is the ones who don't have a support group around them. So we do our best to create that here. Sunday Night Lives is one of them. I swear these technical issues have been the bane of my existence, but honestly, there's a lot of things that went right tonight. So I'm pretty proud of sharing a website, doing a few slides. Even whatever happened with the audio at the beginning, I don't understand it. So that's unsettling because I don't know how to not do it next time. But I've made enough mistakes that we've checked a lot of them off the list. It's a good time to join us. So one of the other things that I think is a benefit of anybody who's doing a keto support group is I like to be invited as a guest speaker to those who are having a support group. And so they have a support group that happens routinely. If you write into hello@bozmd.com, my assistant gets me signed up to helping you answer the questions and really guiding your groups through the story. So those food guides are meant to pass around to the people that are in your support group. If you're looking for I love it when you share the book. That's great. It's a beautiful story of my mom. David's story in KetoCONTINUUM does take it to the next level. And I have found that even though there's a lot more behind what is told in David's story as far as the science and the technical part, that most people grasp enough of the safe parts of how to do a ketogenic diet, adding the workbook. But if you do have a support group, I haven't said no yet to anybody who's asked for me to come in and answer questions during one of your support groups, to Zoom me in and ask the questions for support group. So I'm trying to be as supportive to the people who show up on Sunday nights, who also are doing the amazing job of helping me get the word out by leaving book reviews. Thank you for all 470 of you that have left a book review, and for giving them to people who do really want to understand the book. Speaking of giving away books, we're going to do that in just a second. I'm going to check my numbers. Actually, let's do some questions and answers. So there was actually another. So Trish says, so is it 50% off for either book? So if you go to bozmd.com, if you're watching this on replay, you can go back a few minutes. Bozmd.com, click on the store, and then the food guide is the best beginning option for anybody who's starting. And if you buy 6 or more, I'll pay for half of them. You get a 50% discount on it. And I think that's the best and easiest way. I love it when people read the story. I think they have a better education and they don't stumble. They don't have things like, hey, doc, I had a blood pressure of 100/50 for long enough that I went to go see my doctor. You can prevent that, and you can help your doctor prevent that. And the workbook really does get that improvement. There's a couple more stories that I'm going to highlight over the next few weeks. Some of them preparing for surgery, some of them living through some pretty tough chapters of life. And then what did the ketogenic journey do to them? Again, they are the real heroes of this story. I find that it's an honor to be the one they tell the stories to. All right. So Susan, I think you posted this earlier, so I will answer this. How do you use Soleil water while fasting? How much salt is in the water? If you drink it in a shot glass, how often should I do it? Okay. So if, oh, Steve is in the house. He is actually here. The guy that I did this story about. Oh, I just have goosebumps. Oh. So Susan, let's do the Soleil water first. So Soleil water, the reason I get that question a lot, how much water do you use and how much salt do you use? So for those of you that haven't made Soleil water before, if you go to Dr. Boz, BozMD.com, go to Dr. Boz favorites, there's this thing called, I call them salt sucking rocks. They are the big crystals before they grind up pink salt, Redmond salt. You can buy the crystals before they're ground. And you put them in a glass jar with some water and you dissolve the salt. So when I'm adding, I usually set it on my counter. If you're ever at my house, you'll see there's kombucha usually brewing at all times, and there's Soleil water. The problem is if as the salt rocks are melting or dissolving, I'll use some of the water every morning in my coffee. So as the water gets lower, it can get really concentrated. So I'll continually add more water to it. So the answer is it's pretty darn salty. How much do I put in my coffee? Enough so I can taste the salt. Now, my husband has accidentally tried sipping my coffee, and he just freaks out. It's not. I like it because that's what I do when I fast. But it was never what I would have. If I would have had this coffee with salt in it before the last year and a half, I would have thought that's awful. So when you say how much salt do I use during a fast, I know that if I so this is really hard to explain without an example. So let me think of a couple. If you've been watching American Tradition, Michelle had quite the fear of salt, and with good reason. She's been a nurse for years. She had high blood pressure. If you go back to the early part of that documentary, it was like 180 over 100. It was not a little bit of high blood pressure. It was very high. She had just moved across the country. She was still taking 2 medications for her blood pressure at that point. She is now off of the medications. But part of what was needed for her to successfully migrate off of that was the flow of salt. Soleil water seems to be the easiest for her, for me, for many people to add to cooking or drinks. And as she started to use that, her kidneys needed to handle more salt. They needed to kind of upregulate some of the receptors for that sodium channels that are needed in the kidney to make the urine. As she added the salt into her body, sure, the blood pressure went up for a little bit, but the second or third day it was a little better, and then it was a little better half. So the answer to the question of Soleil water it's not I don't ever type it when somebody asks me in a chat box because it is this difficult to explain. As you put the water, the rocks in the water, and then you're using water off the top of the salt, off of, if you're using the Soleil water, it gets more and more concentrated. So you have to be careful. I've accidentally used a couple tablespoons of Soleil water of the really concentrated salt at the salt water when it's, there's only about an inch left in the jar. Oof, it ruined my coffee. I mean, I had to dilute it for like 3 days worth of coffee. When it comes to people who haven't been adding salt to their diet, much like what Michelle's story was, it is the flow of salt that. So Susan says, is a rock to a gallon too much or too little? So I use a quart jar and I put 1 or 2 rocks in the bottom, and then I fill the quart jar up. As I use some of the, you don't want to put metal inside that. So as I use a plastic spoon, or I sometimes just pour it into my coffee cup, the saltiness of 1 to 2 rocks in a quart jar is what I start with. Sometimes I get it really too salty, so I have to then back down on the amount that I'm using. But as you watch the story of Michelle's journey when she started to have salt. I teach patients, it's the flow of salt through your body that we're should be most in tune with. When you're adding Sole water, you should be drinking. You should be hydrated. To have a low amount of sodium and potassium and all the other things that come in Redmond salt at the beginning, it turns into the first 2 or 3 days can be a little unsettling for people. So be sure you're drinking plenty as you do it. Laura says, what size are the rocks? I mean, they're about the size of between a golf ball and a tennis ball. And when you order them from Redmond's, I mean, some of them are smaller than that, but they're rocks. So they're kind of a random size, enough to get in the bag. So I don't know if I answered that very well. Some use a salt shaker. Yes, I use, when I'm traveling, I'll have the little Redmond salt containers. I think I have one right here, actually, that I fill up. And yeah, I use these little containers and I fill up with just the salt. And honestly, I put about a third of that into my coffee every day. So that's about how much salt I put in my coffee. I know that when I have salt in my coffee, I sip on it much better. If I don't have salt in it, I tend to drink it so fast. So there's something about it that just is just a little better satiation for me too. When I was trying to fast before I had added Sole water, I couldn't make it to, I could make it to 36 hours, but I was very owly. Ask my husband. Now, especially if I'm doing a partner fast, like I'm trying to be supportive of Michelle as she's doing her 72-hour fasts for the last few weeks of her American tradition. So I like doing the 72-hour fast. I know that we talk about in the book and we talk about in the workbook, the thumb print, the shin thumb print. And if I push on that in my own body, if I do a 72-hour fast, even if it's every other week, I stay ahead of that swelling does not come back. It's when I stop adding that, if I get to 48 hours, that's still pretty good as long as I'm perfect the rest of the week. If I am not perfect the rest of the week, if I had, a kid's birthday or a glass of wine, those do not set well with me, and I need to fast to reverse that. If I have if I've at home, which we have a sauna at home until we move, and then apparently all of Tampa is a sauna, but not really. If I'm routine about doing the sauna, I do a pretty good job too. I often say that when I do my sauna 5 to 7 times a week, it's like a 72-hour fast for every 3 of the saunas that I do. So I really find that it helps me stay ahead of the problem. And if I do screw up and have carbs, or if I have a glass of wine, I make sure that I do a sauna the next day or drink ketones. That's really how I get through it. I'm going to check my numbers again at the end of the hour. Again, some of the explanations for how I should have an alcohol here, and I don't know where that is, so oh well. Some of the expectations for how I use sauna, how I use stressing the mitochondria are in that book and in that workbook. So I hope that they lead to a better understanding for those of you that read it, but especially for those leaders that are trying to get their examples. So there's ketones and there is glucose. So yeah, my ketones at 7.8, that was really concentrated. It was really concentrated. I'm going to check those ketones again to see if that is really how high they were. Do one more. 7.8 is pretty dang high. And that isn't, you don't get to do a Dr. Boz ratio when you supplement. It's high because of the so I think at the beginning of the hour, my glucose, wasn't it like 72? Oopsie here. And my essentially 69, 72 are about the same. Okay, so Okay, so somebody said, help me understand why you check your numbers a lot. I check mine. I go through when it's important to check numbers and when you don't. So here's counting down that ketone. Let's see what the number is. Oh. So either it's on my finger or it was really concentrated. So why do I check my numbers? You cannot be on the ketogenic diet when you say you are. You're on the ketogenic diet when you have numbers of ketones present for your body. The chemistry of a ketone, when it's present, it repels the inflammation. Like that swelling and chronic inflammation are what ages patients over time. When patients are looking for proof of their improved metabolism, it has everything to do with, are they measuring? This is not a game of, I think I'm keto because of the way I ate. They are either keto or not keto, and the answer is in measuring. Now, I have, I measure with the strips, but I teach patients all the time, and you'll see this in the book, that I don't expect people to do that throughout the whole time. A urine ketone strip does a really good job of getting that proof that you have ketones flowing through the blood enough to put them into your urine. We call those ketone strips, and those are just a great way to say if your ketone strip is positive, you have proof that you are in ketosis. That is the first step to saying, are you in the right? Are you actually improving your metabolism, or are you? Did your body have an hit equilibrium, really hit that plateau where you need to push a stress for it? When I go into the sauna, that's a stress. When I exercise, that's a stress. When I fast, that's a stress. All of those increase my metabolism. And I don't do this. I don't check because I like to poke my finger. I check because I'm trying to show an audience that I don't get an exemption. My body needs to be checked up on, and I'm human. I fall off the wagon. I can set out to do a fast and then not make it more than 24 hours. That's happened. All right, everybody, give me a thumbs up. I will see you next week. And actually, next week is the final episode for Michelle's 6-month follow-up. Follow her on Instagram. We will be linking those stories, and hopefully you've all really enjoyed her courage, and you'll continue to follow her on Instagram. We'll see you next week, everybody.